what it comes down to is I feel that my staff that manages me at the hospital is very much like 4 nurses. They're all nurses. I mean, so I feel like they have my back in most situations. I know that I'm never going to be belligerent. Have physicians been belligerent with me? Yes.
Sure.
But
right.
again, like it's the patient's decision. You're not the patient's boss, and you're certainly not my boss either. So you can come in, like you're part of the care team with me. Like you're my equal. Just because you make more money than me, or just because you're the one that's doing the orders or whatever, you're not my boss, and you're not the patient's boss.
Hi, I'm Rachel, owner of the NaturalBirth site, certified birth doula, childbirth educator, and midwife's assistant.
And I'm Tiffany Munez, certified birth doula, lactation counselor, and midwife assistant.
Here, you'll learn all about different aspects of pregnancy, birth, and postpartum.
Remember, none of this information should take the place of your care provider and is not medical advice.
Birth is not a medical emergency.
Thanks for listening.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Natural Birth Talk. I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Rachel.
How are you doing?
Good. Just explaining, my son got a palate expander, and so his nervous system is so heightened. He's like so quick to like snip and snap and react lately. And and so we're making it.
Yeah.
but
hopefully that only lasts a little bit longer. Yeah, I'm sure. So today we have a friend of ours, Christina. Christina, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a labor and delivery nurse. I've been a nurse now for about 4 years, I'd say. And I was a doula for 3 years before that. I work I work at a hospital that has a birthing center, and I'm one of the nurses that staffs the birthing center. I also work upstairs on labor and delivery whenever there's nobody in the birthing center. So I kind of do a little bit of both.
Yeah. So how did you start in labor and delivery?
So, like I said, I was a doula for 3 years before I did that. And I decided that I wanted to, birth work was like, I've just known that I was going to do birth work since I was in like 5th grade. I read a book called The Midwife's Apprentice. And I was like, I'm going to be a midwife. That's what I'm going to do.
That's awesome.
So I said, how do I do that? Oh, it's a master's in nursing. Okay, great. So I have to get a bachelor's first. I got a bachelor's, and then my plan to work at the specific hospital in the birthing center while I'm going to school to be a midwife. So that's how I ended up where I am.
Okay. Are you in school right now? Yeah.
No, once I got there and I kind of like saw how things were handled at the hospital, I was like, I don't know that I want to work in the hospital forever. And I don't know that I want to go back and get more student loan debt. So I'm like teetering right now between, should I apply? Should I not apply? And I'm probably going to apply, and I'll probably be going here pretty soon, but I haven't. I'm like, I was like, maybe I should pump the brakes.
Yeah. Well, you could always be an out of hospital midwife.
And I think about it all the time. So I'm like, I'm teetering on that one too. I'm like, which one should I do? Cause I feel like my heart is with home birth, but here we are.
Well, you've been pretty busy recently too, huh?
Yes. A new baby. It's been a lot.
Yeah. And then you have 3 other kiddos. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you're busy. I think you have enough to keep you busy if you decide not to do that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So specifically today, I really wanted to chat about advocacy in the hospital. So obviously, Rachel and I are doulas. Both of us tend to work a lot outside of the hospital.
Yep.
But obviously we know, we do work in the hospital sometimes, and we know how challenging advocacy with our clients can be. So that was kind of, what I was really hoping to chat about today, specifically from a nurse's perspective, and how, maybe nurses help their patients with advocacy, or, what it's kind of like to work on the team, like with a doula, with advocacy. So I guess let's just start with, how do you specifically help your patients with advocacy?
So I find myself in a lot of situations, never when I'm working with a midwife will I ever feel like I'm having to protect my patient from a provider's suggestions, decisions, whatever. But I kind of, if I'm taking care of like a physician's patient, I'm always finding myself like in the beginning when I'm first introducing myself to the patient, somehow explaining like if there's anything that you want or you need when it comes to speaking with the provider, like I want you to know I'm part of the care team. I I am here to help you make informed decisions. If you have any questions about anything, let me know. I mean, you have to like be careful the way you word things because like we know that things could come back on you. But I almost feel like I'm having to like protect patients from physicians a lot of the times, which is like very disturbing and kind of disheartening because it's like, I mean, they're already there to give birth and like, you know, that they chose that physician for whatever reason. Right. But a lot of times these physicians can like flip the script like during delivery. Like, I don't know. They present this like persona, I guess, during office visits or when you first meet them. And this isn't every physician, but it's a lot of them.
Yeah. We call that they come in for the bait and switch, like a bait and switch type provider. And I just want to add like a little bit of snippet is, I know with the midwives you work with, so I know you definitely usually feel like, you know, you don't have to protect from them, but there are some midwives out there that are what we call medwives. Yes. And they do act more like physicians. So, you know, I just kind of wanted to clarify that for the listeners that, you know, just because they have midwife in their title doesn't mean that they're not going to act like a physician. Chances are smaller, right? That chances are better that they're going to be more open to what you want. But you got to I absolutely discern. I have met
some that I do feel that way. Luckily, I don't deliver with any of them, but it can be really, really disheartening to see, you know, they come in for the delivery and it's like, oh my goodness. So I just try to build that relationship with the patient beforehand. That way, you know, if my patient has like expressed to me, like, I really don't want an episiotomy, please don't let, you know, whatever. I mean, like, I'll always make sure that I say that if I see the doctor reach for the scissors, I make sure that I stop and I tell the patient, listen, the doctor thinks that, you know, well, heart tones, whatever. Like I start explaining and then I kind of give the doctor a chance to hopefully jump in and explain what they're doing before they do it. Or if the patient has like explicitly said, I do not want it, like no matter what, I will tell the doctor that. And sometimes I've been known to not even put the scissors on the table.
Good for you.
Love that. Yeah, right? Love that. That's really funny. So that's how you kind of like bridge that gap. What about like, you know, specifically, you know, that's during like delivery, but what about during labor? Like, especially with like, let's say an induction, you know, like there are only so many things that you can do during an induction. And I know I certainly have had experience where like a client of mine doesn't want to do something and you can tell that the nurse is like very uncomfortable with having to go and phone the provider and say like, hey, she doesn't want to do this, you know, and she's like having to be this like middle person between the patient and the doctor.
Yeah.
I could never be uncomfortable. I will gladly tell a doctor any day that my patient doesn't want to do something. And I tell the patient too, whenever I come in with suggestions that the doctor, whatever orders the doctor has given. And I always, so like if somebody gets there for an induction, I'm like, these are the things that are the options for you. Like if they come in and their cervix is closed, I'm going to tell them what the options are going to be. I know what they're going to be either Cervidil or Cytotec. They're not, I don't work with any physicians that start like a closed, thick and high cervix on Pitocin.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thankfully.
Right. Yeah.
But I tell them like the options that I think are probably going to be on the table for them. Of course, I'm not the physician, so I'm not going to tell them like, this is what we're doing before I talk to the doctor. I'm just going to say, these are the options that they will have to choose from. And I sit there and I explain every single one and what it entails and what it's going to be like and how do they feel about that and whatever. That way, when I call the doctor, I can have a little bit of dialogue about like, if they're like, oh, blah, 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 and they just give orders and I'm like, oh, actually, she doesn't want to be ruptured or whatever. That way I kind of let the doctor know already. But if I like didn't think about it ahead of time and I come back to the room and I'm like, okay, the doctor wants to start you on Pitocin and blah, 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 blah. And the patient is like, actually, I don't want to do that. I would rather, you know, do nipple stim or something like that. I have no problems. I'll call the doctor back and I'll be like, she doesn't want to do that. She wants to do this. And I mean, you can't force anybody to do anything. I can put it in her chart that she politely declines at this time, but that's my job. My job isn't to make you do something. My job isn't to make you feel uncomfortable because you're going against the doctor's orders. My job is just to inform you so that you can make informed consent so you can have informed consent and so that you can make choices based off of that. Yeah. And chart accordingly and take care of you while you're in the hospital. It's not to force anybody to do anything. So I will never feel uncomfortable about telling a doctor that a patient doesn't want to do something ever.
Yeah. Good. Happy to hear that. Have you ever gotten pushback from a provider after you've done that?
Immediately, yes.
How do you, I'm just curious, like, how do you handle that? Are you like me where you're just like, I really don't care?
Yes.
Because, like eventually you'll probably have to be in that delivery with that provider, which is always fun.
Yeah. And I've had some very uncomfortable situations, but at the end of the day, what it comes down to is I feel that my staff that manages me at the hospital is very much like 4 nurses. They're all nurses. I mean, so I feel like they have my back in most situations. I know that I'm never going to be belligerent. Have physicians been belligerent with me? Yes.
Sure.
But
right.
again, like it's the patient's decision. You're not the patient's boss, and you're certainly not my boss either. So you can come in, like you're part of the care team with me. Like you're my equal. Just because you make more money than me, or just because you're the one that's doing the orders or whatever, you're not my boss, and you're not the patient's boss. Like you were hired to do a job, which is basically like give recommendations. The patient doesn't have to take them. And they're allowed to say no. So, and that's basically what I say. If somebody's like, oh, they want to do nipple stim, and then the physician wants to have an attitude about it or whatever, I just explain that that's what the patient wants to do at the time, and I'll let them know if it changes. And that's basically it.
Christina, why can't you be the nurse for all of my patients there?
I wish that I was. I really do.
I know. Well, and I'm thinking, like, I know which hospital you work at, and I do feel like that's my favorite hospital in the area. Personally, I have the best experiences there. I have the best, generally speaking, the best nurses over there. The very informed consent. In general, obviously it's not perfect. And I'm thinking about how you're like, yeah, they have my back. And then I'm trying to think of like maybe some of these like small town rural hospitals where maybe your superiors don't have your back. Like they don't have the nurse's back. And I can just imagine what kind of tough position a nurse is put in, because you have a very good understanding, Christina, of what your job is and how to go about doing it and how you're supposed to do it. And for someone working maybe in a rural area where there aren't that many jobs to come by, or where the staff, the higher ups don't have their back, I can just imagine how difficult that is and how stressful that is. And then how that's going to trickle down to the patients too. It's just huge
and
bummer.
It does. Yeah, it does. And it unfortunately, like I said, and like you even said, it's not, even at my hospital, it's not perfect, because I mean, there's a lot of new nurses all the time. Like I have become the way that I am through 4 years of nursing experience now. Like I've had situations where I've been made to feel uncomfortable by the doctors. And before I like found my voice as a nurse, I would just be like, okay, sorry. You know what I mean? But like, I've had too many experiences now, but there's new grads that come on and they like, don't know how to deal with a doctor that's like being ignorant about stuff like that. They don't know how to, they don't know like what their place is with a doula in the room. They don't know. And it's just, I don't know. I feel like that's one of my main jobs is like, I'm trying to like help other nurses find their voice and learn what doulas do and learn what is your job when it comes to the care team and like how it relates to like physicians and residents and all these other people who, are giving orders and things, because that's like, at the end of the day, that's still your patient, and you still have to protect your patient if you feel like the physician is being like predatory in any way.
Yeah.
Wow.
100%.
That made me think of another question. So, I actually have a couple questions, to be honest. So for doulas coming into a space with a nurse who maybe is uncomfortable with doulas, like, do you have any quick tips on maybe what you would appreciate a doula to say or do, or what you think other nurses might appreciate to say? I don't know, like, would it be appreciated by a nurse if a doula said like, hey, I'm here to give a lot of the hands-on support and a lot of the mental support, so we'll call you if we need you, but it's okay if you want to, stay at the nurse's desk or something. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
I tell like some of them are very uncomfortable with the fact that we're even there.
Yeah. And they are, because they don't understand what you guys do.
Yeah.
And so that's something I wish that there was a little bit more education, I guess, on as a nurse. Like, and it's very rare that we even interact with doulas because most patients don't have one. Like
Which is unfortunate, but
it's very unfortunate.
Yeah.
And so I wish there was a little bit more education on people who like aren't really well versed in that. And like, what do doulas do? How do they, like, how do I interact with them? Like, where's my place? Where's their place? And so, but until that happens. But yeah, I love I would love any doula that was like, oh, like, oh, we're thinking about doing these positions, and oh, we got it. Like, we can handle it. You can stay out there and like, we'll call you if we need you.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like, I think that's great.
One thing I like to do when I'm at a hospital birth with the nurses is just say, hey, so I'm here to help with like XYZ. Or like, you know, if somebody has an epidural, hey, like laying it out from the beginning. This is what I'm here to do. Do you need me to call you whenever I'm going to, you know, help my client with her positioning, especially if they're like in bed? Do you want to be in here whenever I do that? Usually I try to do that every 30 to 45 minutes. You know, I always try to like lay it down from the beginning. What do you want from me? And here's what I want from you.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. That's really, really good, because it's like we said, a lot of people don't know, like, what do you guys do? And I think it's important to be like, to ask the questions, do you want me to call you? Because some people are, I mean, well, you know, the patients can come off the monitors easily and they're going to run in every time. But if they know what you're doing ahead of time, then they don't have to like run in there every 5 seconds.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Go ahead, Rachel.
My other question was, you know, we often suggest and we say to our patients, like, hey, if you don't like your nurse, you can ask for a new one.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I know that's realistic, but at the same time, sometimes I worry like, oh, what if there's not another nurse on? Or what if the charge nurse doesn't like your plan, so she doesn't want to give you a new nurse?
Or is even worse.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever come across a situation like that.
Honestly, I haven't. I've only seen my charge nurses like bend over backwards for patients, even if they're being like the difficult patient or whatever.
Good.
They just really like value, like, what is the patient going to say about their experience here? I've never seen a charge nurse ever tell a patient that wants a new nurse, oh, you can't have one. But I've also very rarely ever seen anybody like fire their nurse. I think I've seen it like once in the 4 years I've been there. I know that
it's not common,
but it's not. Yeah, it's not super common. So
right.
But I've never seen them be like, no, you're going to deal with the nurse that you have, ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have other questions, Rachel?
Have you ever had someone ask for a patient advocate?
I haven't. Nope.
But they are available in the hospital, right?
Yeah.
That's all. That's my last question. You can take that over, Tiffany.
You took 2 of my questions.
Oh, well, great minds.
Right. Yeah. Do you have any recommendations for moms who are really trying to use their voice and advocate for themselves? Either whether it's like with the nurse or with the provider or whoever.
Hey everyone, Rachel Manns here, and today I have something I'm thrilled to share with you guys. Imagine having a treasure trove of informative, entertaining, and empowering video content about the journey to parenthood right at your fingertips. That's exactly what you get with Informed Pregnancy Plus. For less than 25 cents a day, that's a quarter, guys, you'll gain access to a vast subscription library filled with documentary films, web series, mind and body fitness programs, workshops, and courses covering fertility to parenting and everything in between. Designed for new and expectant parents, as well as pregnancy and birth professionals, Informed Pregnancy Plus is like having a trusted BFF and doctor in one, guiding you through every step of the path to and through parenthood. A few of just my favorite titles are obviously The Business of Being Born, Empowered Mama, Belly Dance for Birth, how fun is that? Ease into Sleep, the Afterbirth Plan, and the Core Connection, an extremely well-presented and informative workshop teaching you about your core and pelvic floor and how to keep them healthy. And here's the best part. For a limited time, you can gain full access absolutely free. Just visit informedpregnancy.tv to sign up. Sign up for Informed Pregnancy Plus right now. I'm not kidding, guys. It's really going to help you out. It's my prescription for your informed and empowered parenting journey, all from the comfort of your home. Visit informedpregnancy.tv. That's informedpregnancy.tv, and the link will be in the description below. Now back to the show.
I mean, I would say just like know your rights. Just because something is hospital policy does not mean that it's like a law for you to follow.
Yeah.
If they tell you, let's say, okay, like, so you get to the hospital for your induction and they're like, okay, you can't eat anymore. You should question why. Why can't I eat?
Yeah.
If I'm not like, I mean, obviously if you're getting there for like a C-section, yeah, you can't eat. You're about to have surgery. You're going to have, you know what I mean? That's anesthesia. That's a whole separate thing. And if you want to know the reasons, absolutely, by all means, please ask and like know your rights. But everything that happens to you in the hospital, everything that you're going to talk about with your care team, like you should know the reasons why. Yeah. And you deserve for everything to be explained to you. If something doesn't make sense to you, please stop and be like, I'm just trying to understand, like, why are we doing it this way? And if you're not comfortable with something, then say that. And if your nurse isn't going to advocate for you, you can ask for a different nurse. Yeah. You can tell the doctor no, you can tell your nurse no. If somebody's touching you without getting consent from you every time, tell them, I want you to ask permission before you touch me. Just, I mean, it's one of those things. And I know it's hard for people who aren't like confrontational, I guess, because it's uncomfortable to like stop other people with what they're doing. Yeah. Especially when it's like their job and you don't do their job, but it's your body. It's your body and it's your baby's body. And you have the right to not have people's hands on you and not have people pushing medications that you don't want on you. And nobody can make you do anything inside the hospital at all. They can chart that you politely decline if you don't want to do it. It's not their job to force you to do something that you don't want to do. Yeah. Yeah. So true. Something that I always tell my clients too is if a provider or somebody at the hospital walks in and has a recommendation, you've answered all your questions, or they've answered all of your questions, you can always ask too for time. Like, hey, yes. I need 5, 10, or however long I feel like, to make your decision. I know sometimes my clients can feel really pressed to make some of these decisions whenever recommendations are brought in by whoever.
Well, and I think there's a mind shift or a mindset shift that needs to happen here too. And I say this, Tiffany and I both kind of say this, maybe not necessarily on the podcast all the time, but I know we've said it, but on our business pages and such, and with our clients, like reminding them that you don't work for your provider. Your provider works for you.
Correct.
And so they are not in charge of you. And you have said that already, Christina, too, but it's a huge mindset shift that has to happen because we live in a culture where like medical personnel are the authority over you. And that's just, it's simply not true. Right. As the patient, you are paying them to do a job. And if you don't like the job that they are doing, if you are uncomfortable with it, if you don't like the suggestion, whether you have a scientific reason for not liking it or whether it's just instinctual that you don't like it, you absolutely have the right to tell them no, or even to fire them and get a new one.
Correct. Yep.
But it's hard for people, like you said, especially the rule followers or the people who are non-confrontational.
Yeah, it really is.
Yep. Do you have any stories, Christina, about times where you've really had to like advocate for patients?
Oh my gosh, I have so many. I wish I didn't, but I really do.
Right. Yeah. Anything you want to share?
Let me think. Well, there's like been several with like episiotomy. Some of these old school doctors really like to come in and just like cut an episiotomy on.
So gross.
Like just for kicks, just because it's what they do.
And I mean, I've literally had doctors like patients will be like, please, I don't want an episiotomy. And they'll be like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do and you do your job and whatever. And they'll just do it. And it's like crazy. I've seen doctors tell. There was one that came in and cut an episiotomy on a natural patient.
Oh.
And then wouldn't let her hold her baby while she was being repaired. The patient was crying and the physician said, "What are you crying about?"
That's rude. Crazy. That is not okay.
No.
What an ass.
That is not okay. That makes me so mad.
Physician try to like manually rotate a baby without telling getting consent from the patient, telling the patient what they were doing. So these are all, of course, instances that you're going to write like a safe report on. You're going to let your management know. And that goes like straight to the doctor that's like the head of the physicians or whatever.
Yeah.
So that person the person that's like the head of the physicians or whatever can address that with the physician separately. And it's all anonymous and it's a whole thing. But there's
that's something that I didn't know that nurses could do. So you can file a report anonymously about like the provider. Yeah.
That's good.
And so sometimes if it's like the crazy things like I just talked about, those things usually like the doctor will be like, oh, I remember what nurse I was working with when that happened. So like they'll, even though it's anonymous, like they'll probably know who did it.
Right.
But like, I could never care.
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna like act like that and get away with it. Sorry. But like, again, like it's just another like physicians thinking that they're in charge of everything, and you're not, you don't run things, and you're not like entitled to other people's bodies, and you're not entitled to, no, I can't, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Good for you.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, we need more nurses like you, and hopefully there are nurses listening and they're going to be really inspired by you and your, you know, ability to just be like, I don't really care about myself. This is about doing what's right and about what these patients need and deserve. And that's awesome.
Yeah. I always try to, I went to like this meeting the other day, and a patient, it was like this patient advocacy thing. And this mom was saying like, some of these nurses and providers and just anybody at the hospital, they don't understand. Like for them, it's a Tuesday. For me, it's the most important day of my life.
Right.
Correct.
And I think that so often hospital staff forget that, right? Like they're there to do a job, to make their money, you know, whatever. And they don't even think about the person who is like laying there, that she is a human, like she's a person. And she's not just a job, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so crazy too, because like, if you think about like, we deal with women, obviously, primarily. So it's like birthing people come in, and you've got this, so many of us have all types of trauma. And so, but you have people practicing in this like very intimate profession that are not practicing like trauma informed care.
Yeah.
And they come in and it's like very vulnerable. We're dealing with like very private parts of people's bodies. We're not asking if we can touch them first. We're just, oh, I'm going to check you now. I'm going to adjust your monitor. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it's like, oh my God, like if you're going to pick to like have this be your career, you could, like the least you could do, I feel, is to like practice trauma informed care, because it's, I don't know, it's just crazy. And then you're touching people without consent. You're trying to force them to do things just because that's what the doctor's recommendation was. I don't know. There's just like so many people that go into this profession, and I'm like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Like people who are like, I won't take, I hate natural patients. I don't want to take a natural patient. What, girl?
It's so annoying. Yeah.
That's not going into like, you want to go work in the ICU, or you want to go work in like the cardiac unit, but you hate heart surgery.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You hate the natural physiology of the specialty that you chose? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's weird.
I really can't relate to that on any level.
Not
Sorry,
a flex.
that's weird.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's
yeah, and I find
crazy.
that sometimes like I'll hear recommendations from whether like the provider or the nurse or whoever is coming in, and they don't even know why like they're recommending it. You know what I mean? Like they're just like, oh yeah, well, they want to break your water. Okay, why? Well, I don't really know why, you know. Well, what are the risks of that? Oh, I wouldn't worry about that. Like we do it all the time.
Okay. Yeah. Not the answer to the question I asked.
That's not what we're, yeah.
So if something like that happens, I want you to ask for well, it depends on the hospital you're at. If they have residents, I would ask for a resident to come in, because that's like a doctor that's supposed to be at the hospital all the time. So I want to talk to a hospitalist. I want to talk to a resident. I want to speak to somebody who does know the reason why, because I want to know the reason why. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's a good tip too, because, you know, sometimes moms going into the hospital, they don't know who to ask for. They don't know that there's a patient advocate available to them. They don't know that there's a charge nurse who can get them a new nurse. They don't know that there are residents or in-house doctors that can come in and talk to them. Or even some hospitals have in-house midwives, which is super cool, you know, can come in and talk to them. They don't know who to ask for.
Have you ever had to request an advocate, Rachel?
I've never had someone request an advocate, and I'm not sure I've ever had someone request a new nurse either. I had one client before she was my patient. So her previous birth, she fired her doctor and got a new one in the middle of her birth. And then that's why she hired a doula the next time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have had like the hospitalists or like the in-house midwives or whomever come in and like talk to my patient and like try to explain things better, which has always been nice. But
yeah.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. I've had to, I recommended to a client one time to call the patient advocate because they were just, and this was postpartum. This wasn't even during, labor or delivery, but, and yeah, basically as soon as she requested that, kind of the whole tune changed.
I've heard that's how that goes.
So sometimes I feel like all you have to do is request it and really let people know, like, hey, I'm not screwing around here. Like, I'm being treated badly. You're not doing your job.
Correct.
I want to speak to the advocate. Yep. I also told her to say that she was going to call her lawyer. And she did. And I mean, I hate that it has to be that way.
Right.
But I feel like sometimes it really does because people, again, like sometimes hospital staff doesn't take people seriously. Yeah. So sometimes you have to let them know just how serious you are.
Yeah. And it really sucks because like you said, Christina, it's the most important day, or maybe it was you, Tiffany. It's the most important day of mom's life. You don't want to bring conflict into that. You don't want to bring confrontation into that. And it really sucks when you have to. But at the same time, like there has to be this line where they cannot treat you poorly, and nor should they be. And, you deserve respect. And if calling a patient advocate or a hospitalist or something, if that asking for a new nurse, whatever, like if that's what gets you the respect you deserve, then like, I don't ever want a mom to feel badly for doing that, right? Or to feel like they can't do it.
Well, and the way that I look at it too is that, and it's really unfortunate that you have to look at it this way, but if you think about like, if you went out to a restaurant to eat and they told you that you were going to have Dr. Pepper and you wanted a Coke, and they told you that you were going to have a salad, but you wanted a steak or whatever, you would be like, I need to talk. Like, I want to talk to somebody. Why are you making me eat these things? Why? Whatever. Like you would want to talk to somebody higher up and understand why you're being treated this way. Hospitals treat patients like it's a business. So, okay, if you're going to treat me like a number, then I'm going to, like if you're going to treat this like it's a business, then so am I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. That's true. Unfortunately, like people feel like, oh, like I'm going to the hospital. They'll take care of me, blah, blah, blah. A hospital's a business, just like every other business. And that's what you have to understand. Like some nurses care, some doctors care. But like, does every single person there care? Does the hospital itself, the hospital admins, or the people at the top care? They don't care. They don't care. They care that you get in and have your baby and get out so that they can fill the bed with the next person and make more money. So if that's the case, which it is, then you deserve to speak up. And this is what I want. Right. These are the things that I want. And if this person isn't going to do it, then fire them and find somebody who will. Because
well, and that plays into the importance of like wisely choosing your care team in the first place,
exactly.
which is a different topic than what we're on today necessarily. But, these are just some of the many reasons why it's important to not just pick your friend's OB or pick the OB you've had since you were 16 or, pick it because they had good Google reviews. I don't care what those Google reviews say.
Truly.
Like if you want anything different from the standard American birth, you don't want to go off those Google reviews.
Right.
And it's so funny because I almost feel like people should, when they're picking their provider, even like I see a lot of providers who I work with and know on a very, I know them well, but I see them be recommended in even natural birth groups where people are asking for, oh, I want recommendations on a doctor. And I'm like, oh my goodness gracious, why are so many people recommending this person to people who are in a natural birth group? This is crazy. But of course I can't say anything. My hands are like somewhat tied. So
okay, well next time just DM me and I'll say it.
Yeah, one of us will pop in there and be like, don't pick that person.
That person sucks. Yeah.
I see so many people recommending these people and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I wish I could say something. But I mean, I'm just hoping that like, you don't even just take like blind recommendations from people in like a similar group. Like specifically, if a certain physician is recommended enough times that you're like considering them, ask the people who recommended them, tell me about your birth. Like, what was your experience like? Did you have delayed cord clamping? Did you have like delayed first bath? Did you have like things like, you know what I mean? Like you want to know specific things that you want for your birth. Did you have to like advocate for yourself to get that? Or like, was this physician like chill with you, like making your own decisions, etc. Like ask specific questions. Don't just take recommendations because some people want to go to the hospital and just do whatever the hospital says and they don't care. They just want, and maybe that's not what you want.
Well, and I often say too, even if you don't want to hire a doula, like reach out to several of the local doulas if you have doulas in your area and ask them,
Yes.
about providers. And I would reach out to more than one doula because some doulas have different opinions, but reach out to a couple of them and just say like, you can even tell them like, hey, I'm not super interested in hiring a doula, or I'm not sure if I want a doula, but I did have some quick questions if you don't mind answering them. Like, you know, and usually, you know, doulas just, to be a doula, we have to want to help. The same with like, you know, most labor and birth nurses, you kind of have to want to help. And so usually we're pretty happy to answer some quick questions, even if you don't want to hire us.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. That was all my questions, Rachel. What else do you have?
I don't have anything else either. So do you have anything else you want to add, Christina?
I don't think so. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for being willing to come on and talk about your work and how you can help patients. And I know that you guys definitely don't have an easy job.
No.
I can imagine how difficult and stressful and sometimes traumatizing it can be. So thank you for the work that you do. I know Rachel and I really appreciate whenever we have a really awesome labor nurse that we're working with. I feel
it makes
like
a huge difference.
I feel like oftentimes like the nurses that our patients get matter more than the providers that they have. Cause I mean, sometimes the provider is only there for a few minutes, you know, and the labor nurse we're with all day long. So again, thank you just for coming on and being an amazing nurse and an amazing resource for patients.
And hopefully our listeners hearing from an actual labor and birth nurse will help them to realize that it is okay to stand up and it is okay to say no. And, you know, you're not being nitpicky or particular or whatever, you know?
Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
But even if you are, that's fine too. Yeah.
Well, that's fine too. But some people are like, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to be that picky patient. I don't want to annoy anybody. And, you know, I hate that moms ever feel that way. And hopefully after hearing you, Christina, they realize that it's okay to stand up for themselves. So,
yeah. And I hope they never feel that way. And when they do, stand up for themselves.
Yes, absolutely. So.
Perfect. Awesome.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for being here. Listeners, we'll talk to you in the next episode. Yeah. Bye.
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 Hi, Rachel Manns again. If you want to learn more, please subscribe to and rate this podcast and head over to thenaturalbirthsite.com to check out our online natural birth education course, birth story blog, YouTube channel, and more.